Hello and welcome to Solopreneur, the show that helps business owners who are flying solo to solve their big sales, marketing and systems challenges one episode at a time. You can watch the video version of this episode at solopreneur.com. On the last episode, I gave you what I felt were my most likely pain points that you'd experience in the lemonade process sequence, the lemonade plan, and where you are most likely to be losing the fizz from end to end in your relationships. And I highlighted the way that you generate leads and the way that you educate those leads as the most likely areas that most solopreneur businesses need to think about and need to address in order to not lose the fizz from end to end and in order to sign the number of clients that you need in order to run a business that hits your goals. I want to, on this episode, focus on the very first one of those and on lead generation and just break it down as simply as I can for you so that you can make a plan in order to address that. So let's get into it. The simplest way I can describe lead generation is not actually my own teachings, but of one of the most successful business coaches in the world, a chap called Taki Moore, who is a Australian-based business coach who teaches small business owners, specifically coaches is his market, how to achieve more success in their coaching business. And whilst you might not run a coaching business, his guidance applies to pretty much any small business. If you haven't heard of Taki Moore, I'd encourage you to go and check out his book, $1 Million Coach. It's available on Kindle for really a couple of pounds you can get it for, or you can get the paperback version for 10 or 12 pounds. Very, very logically structured guide to running a coaching business. But like I say, if you're running any small business, there are some lessons and learnings in there, and he breaks it down into 3 key areas, but then breaks those 3 areas into 3 other ones. So there are 9 logical steps in there, and it's a very easy read. On the topic of lead generation, he talks about how there are basically 3 ways to generate leads, and you just need to pick one that you focus on. So let's talk about those 3 areas, because it then becomes easy for you to think about which one suits you best. So the first way that we have to generate leads is probably the way that most small businesses operate. Maybe not in a planned way, but perhaps in a default setting. And the first way is that you're using free marketing methods. That's creating content, blog content, videos, posting on social media, perhaps going to networking events and meeting people in person. Things that don't cost you financially anything, but where you're committing time to creating resources or creating connections yourself. The big advantage of this is that you can get started with your free marketing methods pretty much straight away. You can experiment with different content and different ways of generating leads as you wish. You can create blogs, you can create videos, you can do short form video on various different platforms. It's free. It's easy to get into. It's easy to start. It doesn't cost you anything apart from your time. So when you start out in business and you don't have a lot of clients, you haven't got a full diary, it's possibly an easy way to be able to start your marketing and explore what works for you without compromising the relationships that you have with your clients and without any impact there. You might have sensed a degree of skepticism in my voice when I presented those things, because really fundamentally nothing is free. If it requires your time, and that time could be spent on revenue generating activities, then you're by default compromising on being able to do that. Free marketing does have its benefits, however. As a long-term strategy, if you're committed to it and you're good at writing content, you're good at being sociable, either online or in person, over time, you can build a reputation as somebody that's trustworthy and that is somebody that knows what they're talking about in that setting. So free is not necessarily a terrible choice to make in terms of how you market your business, but bear in mind that you're probably not going to get results from it straight away, and that you need to be committed and consistent with sharing your message online. There's some great resources for it. As you might expect, those people that are good at creating content are also good at teaching you how to create content. So in this area, there's actually a ton of resources online about how you can do this yourself and in your business. The key gotcha on this is really that you need to continue to be consistent with the content that you create, whether it's blog, video, social media content, networking. You need to stick at it. If you drop off, if you don't post that blog post, if you don't send that email out, if you don't attend those networking events, those gaps will be noticed. There's only a certain amount of credibility and gravitas that your existing content, your historic stuff, will bring for you. So you need to plan time to be able to do these efforts. And also, because we're working for ourselves and we don't generally have the assistance to do this, you need to devote the time and the energy in order to be able to do this consistently. So book that time into your diary on a weekly basis in a non-negotiable way in order to make sure that it continues to happen. Otherwise, your profile online starts to look patchy. Your profile in a physical world, if networking is your thing, starts to look patchy, and those leads will start to drop off. The second path that you can take to generate consistent and predictable leads into your business is going down the paid pathway. So promoting really specific resources, really specific content using paid advertising channels or paid promotion channels to do that. Common ones are Facebook advertising, Google advertising, LinkedIn advertising is also a popular route. Other routes are if you're providing, say, local services, are flyers that go out to prospects in your area, being featured in those local on your doorstep type magazines, advertising in physical locations that can prove fruitful, or perhaps accumulating a list of potential leads and doing direct mail campaigns to them. I'm not a big fan of cold outreach, of doing cold email marketing, although by the letter of the law, you can do B2B marketing via a cold route. I just find that it's so icky. And if you don't appreciate receiving cold emails yourself, why would your target audience appreciate that? If you've never hired anybody via cold email, why would somebody else hire you? The percentage success of cold outreach is ever so low. But while we're on the topic of cold outreach, you can hire lead getters, telemarketing services, or people who are paid to generate leads for you, and you pay for leads into your business. Paid is, in my opinion, the most predictable source of being able to generate leads into your business. It's a tap that you can turn on. If you need more leads one month than the last month, you can advertise more. If you find something that's working, you can do more of it. And by contrast, things that aren't working, you can do less of them. So it gives you a great platform to be able to A/B test, if you like, what's working and what's not working. It's also for those people who are time constrained, it's also a great way of being able to get the maximum results from the minimum inputs. You do need to have good ads, and either you can do that yourself or you can hire an expert to do that for you. But in terms of creating resources, lead magnets, landing pages that you point people to in order to become leads in your world, you actually need far less of it than you do for the free content. So from in that regard, it allows you to save time and energy that you can then devote to other things, either how you're nurturing those leads that come into your world or how you're working with those clients that are now paying for your services and doing more with them and serving them better. The big downside of it is obviously there is a financial cost to paid promotion, paid advertising. So you do need to really keep track of how that advertising is working, how that is turning leads that come into your world into paying clients. Once you do have that tap that works, though, and once you do have that predictable return on investment from advertising sources, then as long as you've got the capacity to deliver the work, it just becomes a matter of how many of those eyeballs, how many of those impressions can you get to turn them into predictable leads into your business. So I'm a big proponent of paid advertising as a source of leads and as a source of new clients and fresh new leads into your business for solopreneur businesses. In my eyes, once you've cracked being able to predictably bring people in from a target source into your world as leads and nurture them through and have the right sales meetings that turn into clients, in my mind, it's the most efficient way of being able to predictably hit the goals that you've set for yourself in your business. Like I said, though, paid advertising isn't for everybody. Some people are just uncomfortable about taking the risk to risk their money on advertising initially. Some people are uncomfortable about the technologies to do so. They'll have heard scare stories about how advertising has cost hundreds or thousands without a return on investment. Or you'll be uncomfortable about that approach to back your content with paid ads. If that is the case, then do think really seriously about hiring professional help to do it. If nothing else, to get you off the start line and get you going with some good ads that you can then manage yourself thereafter. And perhaps they train you on how to manage that yourself more effectively. Or think about the third route of how you can generate leads into your business. Do you see that subtle transition there? The third route is a route that I used early on in my business, and I really value it. It still generates revenue for me to this day through clients that I've generated there, where they're bringing in a recurring revenue. And this third route is partnerships. The partnerships route is one where you form alliances, whether informal or formal alliances, with people who can refer business your way, either refer cold leads to you who are just not a fit for them and who might be a better fit for you, or if you're offering sort of crossover services, they do one thing but don't do the thing that you do. Is there a good fit between them being able to make a referral to you so that you can better serve that client and get them the better results that they're looking for, or the wider results that they're looking for? Those relationships can be, like I say, either informal or formal relationships. When I was doing partnership marketing, I built a group of really trusted referral partners who I incentivized to refer people that were in their world into me so that I could, in my business, help them with their marketing systems and marketing processes, help them to systemize and automate things that were perhaps working on a one-off basis in their business but weren't scalable and repeatable. And I built relationships with people who were great at what they did in their settings and had a little bit of an audience in terms of a coaching base or people that looked up to them and followed them for ideas and guidance about how to run their business more effectively, whether it's a B2B, B2C business. It was generally a service-based business. So I worked with physios, for example. I worked with carpet cleaners. I worked with accountants. But it was also in a setting of product-based businesses as well. So, for example, for a while, I worked with hot tub retailers, and I was referred into different hot tub retailers by a publishing organization who did promotional activities for them and who, just in that case, were seeing on behalf of their publishing clients that they were generating good interest and good leads by the advertising that they were doing. But these hot tub retailers weren't able to convert every single lead that was coming in quickly enough into clients. It required a decision process, and anything that requires a decision process, as we covered before, requires some sort of educational sequence. So I was a good fit for this promotional publication to be able to add value to their advertisers so that they could generate leads. That's very obviously very specific to me, but are there circumstances in your world where you can provide crossover services, mutually beneficial crossover services to people who could potentially refer work to you, whether that's informally as a value add or with a formal referral partnership agreement? I paid a commission for leads that came into my business, but I've also taken on clients through less formal routes, through partnerships where referrals have come in that way. Partnerships are a great way of being able to build business traction pretty quickly and build business traction in a way where you don't have a huge amount of time outlay or a huge amount of financial outlay upfront. If you're trustworthy enough to be able to solve problems that your target client has, that somebody who works with that target client already sees enough value in referring them to you, then building partnerships with those types of people is a really easy pathway to do. Where it has downsides, and there aren't actually that many downsides to partnership marketing, but where it can have downsides is if there are ever circumstances where the referrer wants that client to have a more consistent experience and perhaps has seen the value of what you do and brings some of that stuff in-house, or perhaps is only referring to you early on in order to, if you like, test a model of could we build this additional service into the mix. Another place that it can break down is if the referrer doesn't feel like they're being involved enough in understanding how you've helped that client on an ongoing basis. So communications is a really important thing here. Establish with your referring partner how they want you to keep them up to speed with the kind of work that you're doing. The other thing as well that can put a spanner in the works around partnership agreements is if, let's say, times become harder and the client sees or prioritizes a greater value in the services that you provide for the particular problems that you're solving for them than they do the original referrer. That can happen as well. So there are various different things that you need to bear in mind in terms of minimizing the risk of those partnership agreements breaking down. But it's a good route. It's a great route, and it's an easy route for you to be able, as an expert, and as probably if you're coming out of corporate or out of an existing small business with expertise in play, it's a good way that you can use your network, either your existing network or build a network around what you do and build some traction and a business pretty quickly. So there we go. 3 different ways, 3 different simple ways that you can plan a strategy of how you generate leads into your business. I'm probably a mix of the first 2. My preference is to do paid advertising, pointed towards things that work. But as you're listening to this podcast, this is a free route of me being able to create content that you listen to or you watch or you read if you're reading the blog posts around this that promotes my business. That part to me feels like the longer game, that body of content will build up, that body of trust, that authority around that will build up. But where I'm using it just now, and you're watching episode 18, so we're not hundreds of episodes into this, where I'm using this in my business is pointing paid advertising, paid promotional material into specific episodes that people can watch, people can listen to for the first time and perhaps opt in to my list and become leads that way. So I'm in that kind of bridge between paid and free, but recognizing the fact that I don't have enough free content in this channel at the moment to be able to build a predictable and repeatable source of leads into my business. So perhaps instead of thinking of just purely one, is there a hybrid model that you can follow initially before you then set your stall out to follow down one particular pathway? I hope that's been useful to you. There are plenty of things to consider when it comes to lead generation. It's ever so important that you nail one of them so that you can have that predictable source of leads into your business. In the next episode, I'm going to be talking about some of the unique ways, some of the specific ways that small and solopreneur businesses are impacted in their marketing that larger businesses are not. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about 5 marketing mistakes that small and solopreneur businesses make that create a gap between the goals that you set and the results that you get. So please tune into that. In the meantime, if you'd like to get the resources from this episode, if you go to solopreneur.com/EP19, then you'll be able to look at the show notes and also see the resources that relate to how you can go about improving your own lead generation. So please head over to solopreneur.com/EP19 where you can get those resources. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Solopreneur podcast. Remember that what we learned today builds more value if there's a plan to take action on it tomorrow. So head to solopreneur.com and check out our growing community of action takers and all the training and software that you need to build a scalable business without breaking the bank. And if you value the show, please help others to discover it too by leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts or by sharing a link to an episode on LinkedIn or wherever your finger does its scrolling.